3, 2, live.
You're now watching Two Old Farts Making Noises.
Joe, do you know why some businesses succeed and some businesses fail? Why some businesses grow and some businesses don't? That's what this show is all about. Business, business, business.
All right, folks, here we are again. I'm your host, Michael Maturo, with the Lost Dollar Business Club, and we have Stephen and David Oldfart. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen.
How you doing? I like this music that we play because it's like head-banging music. I can see somebody like driving in the car with a podcast going, boom, boom, boom.
Good way to start the day.
Yeah, right. Time to wake up.
Yeah,
Good choice.
wakey, wakey.
So,
Yeah,
wakey, wakey.
And how are you guys doing? Wakey, wakey. We're starting early today. Happy to be joining you guys.
Everything is good, my friend. We got exciting stuff going on, and today's topic's pretty exciting too, I think.
Yeah, we've got a few different topics going on. We'll talk about neurodiversity in the workplace, which is an interesting concept and topic, and it does tie into DEI a little bit, but it's expanding our minds around what is neurodiversity and how does it play into the workplace. It's a good topic. And then we've got David actually had a great recommendation on what's happening to the modeling industry now that they're using AI models for clothing and other consumer goods.
I like it.
That'll feed into our AI discussion, which is a common discussion here at the Lost Dollar Business Club.
That's because AI.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bendicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bendicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club. It's such peppy music, that one.
Right? And it got little glasses and a little smirk on its face for those people that are in the podcast and have never seen it. So
that was Noosh's logo. That was Noosh's design.
Very nice. That's very nice. I like it.
Nooshana logo.
Nooshana, I like it. Very cool. All right, Michael. Where do you want to start today?
Neurodiversity. That was in the Financial Times. So that was a pretty interesting podcast. It was, I think, a 15-minute clip on what is neurodiversity, which is really just divergent thinking. You're talking about people with autism, with ADHD, and really accepting that people think divergently, think differently. Maybe back to those the Apple think different days. But it is interesting to think about that when you look at diversity in the workplace, it's not just, and maybe it's more importantly, not just the way you look or the way you sound, but it's the way you think. Mm-hmm. And that's what neurodiversity is going for, is, diversity in your neural thinking. Right. So have you guys seen that in the workplace yet?
I think it's too new, but I wish they had it, because it's interesting. Everybody works differently, right? Everybody learns differently. So schools have figured this out, but I think now workplaces are figuring out, and I think we were doing it without knowing we were doing it. Because if someone worked better doing in a different situation or a different type of, we were like, yeah, just go do that. It didn't really occur to us we were doing anything special. It's like, oh, we would be more productive, sitting outside working. Go sit outside. I don't care. Right. As long as you get your job done. So I think we were doing it without knowing. And now, because we're in this wokeism, now it's like we have to name everything and do it.
Everything's named.
But what I thought was interesting. Wait, let me finish. What I thought was interesting is in neurodiversity, they were saying like leaders, like if you don't like going out into the pub and socializing with people, or if you don't like speaking in front of people, you can't be a leader, right? That's not true. You may be great at what you do. You just have to get somebody then that helps you get to that level or does that part for you. Right? Not everybody wants to press the flesh. Not everybody wants to. People sometimes are strategic, want to be at a desk and left alone. That doesn't mean you're a bad leader. That's just you. So we always joke at some of the companies I'm in, there's enough of us that between all 10 of us, we're a real person. because everybody's they're good at what they're at, and you're good at what you're at. You're not good at what you're not. Stick in your lane, and not that you should always learn, of course. But in business, if I only know this one thing, it's good that I may learn and know other things. But if I'm an expert here, I'm going to stay there. So then I need experts in other things. So it's like I said, that's our joke. Between 10 people, we make a person, and I'm okay with that. Because I can't know everything. I mean, I do because that's the way it goes because I'm Jewish. But I'm just saying I think that's a really important thing that business leaders today have to realize. You're not going to be an expert at everything. You need to, have enough people with you that you're a person. I don't know. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think the way that I've approached it in the past is I say to people, look, it's now time to turn the telescope round the other way. We're always looking for the big picture, right? But if you turn it around the other way, you actually see what's happening within your organization. And you see that certainly here in the Netherlands, we have software houses that have openly said, if you're autistic, but you love computers and you have a little bit of a skill set, come and work for us. And the work environment of which these people are going into, some of them like to be in a cubicle, some of them like to have a desk on an island, some of them like to be in a space totally on their own, and they're just left to do it. And the people who run these companies, there's 2 or 3 of them that do it, they all say the same thing. We've never had so much productivity coming out of our business, and we've never had so many really happy people, although happiness, outs itself in several different ways. So, if you have people who are really autistic, then sometimes they have a great deal of difficulty in expressing that emotion. But the management teams are also taking lessons themselves and learning how to deal with this. And it's just, to be honest, it fills my heart with joy to be able to think that there's a space for everybody. And I have to agree with Stephen. There are so many people with so many different skill sets. Just because I'm not quite doing it the way that you or my manager or the directors feel I should do it, doesn't mean to say that I'm not good at it in a different way. More of a process side of it.
I agree with you. It's a really positive development to maybe more explicitly acknowledge this concept of neurodiversity so that we can talk about it a little bit better. I've been at companies where, there's people who are different in their mindset, and we do our best to be accommodating or give them the space that they need to work in the way that they want to work. But what do you do about the stigma of it? Because it sounds great that you have, at least in Europe over there, in your part of Europe, that people are explicitly welcoming people who are neurodivergent. I don't know that I've seen that myself from my vantage point here in the States, or maybe that it's just starting to increase. But what do you do about the stigma? Because there's probably still stigma around people who are differently abled in the mental sense.
I think here's the funny part. Like Hollywood will put people in that have whatever handicap, right? And everybody makes a big deal about it. And I have friends who will have a handicap. They don't want you to make a big deal about it. They're a person. So I think there are some industries here, and I forgot the one that used to run commercials in the 70s and 80s where they would just hire handicapped people. Whether they were in a wheelchair, they had Tourette's, whatever it would be. And, it was like no big deal. So I really don't know in America if it's, now that we've named it, right, if it's that big of a deal, or if people have just been doing it and it's just sort of like we've been doing it. You know what I mean? It's like we're hiring, Sally or John or whoever, whether they're in a wheelchair or they have a prosthetic leg, or whether they have ADHD, or whether they have autism or Asperger's. Who cares, right? I mean, I think we just do it. And I think now we have to name everything, because God forbid you just say, I'm hiring a person. It's kind of like when you fill out an employment, do you have a handicap? None of your effing business if I have a handicap. You're supposed to just hire me. And it's like, I never understood why they would ask that.
The quality of my work.
Right. But it'd be like, are you a male or female? Why do I have to tell you? If I'm white, black, green, why do I have to tell? Listen, I'm a human being. That's all you need to know. There's my CV. And I don't understand why they ask it. I think it's all BS.
Well, the thing about the handicap, certainly here in Europe, is that you have, I had a distribution company, where we physically were, sending out. It was in the days of CD-ROMs. And we had a guy come and work for us, and when he who had a form of polio, and he needed before we took him on the local Labour office. They said, well, you do realise that you can have issues with him, and that his health is not always 100%. And I looked at what he did, and I said, well, he's brilliant. It's exactly the guy I want. I want somebody on the phone who's articulate, who can talk to a certain group of people. And then when he came and joined us, he said, "Oh, David," he said, "did you know that you can get a subsidy for this? I need, the toilet had to be changed and everything else." So I said, "Yeah, we were thinking about doing it." "Oh," he said, "you just asked." "Well, there's a big pot of money here, so you can change your building to accommodate people like me."
Wow.
And I think that's one of the things that the companies just don't forget to ask. I mean, here you have to have a certain amount. If your company has a certain percentage of people working for you, 10% have to be people who have some form of disability. You also have to have parking facilities for them, so they can park nearer to the work. But you should embrace it. It's there. These are fabulous people who are all desperate to work. Yeah. And, and again, there's a huge pot of money available. If you have to have your an invalid toilet, but what an awful word, invalid toilet. You know what I mean? You have a toilet which facilitates people who need slightly more,
space,
support space. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
But in America, we do that. So like if you go to a new building, and even I think since like the 70s, we have handicap stalls because they have a little picture. You've got special bathrooms, they all parking spots with the big blue wheelchair and whatever. And so we've been doing that for a while, supermarkets, shopping centers. So in that respect, we do that. What pisses me off, here's a tangent, is the people who park in a handicap spot, put the sticker up, and I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. They're not limping. It's like, oh yeah, I'm using my Aunt Gertrude's. Yeah. And I'm like, and I remember when my mom was alive, she could barely walk. So she had a wheeler. So we'd park in a handicap. So if someone would see me run to the car to go get something, they'd say something. And I'd be like, it's for my 97-year-old mother. And they'd be like, got it. But when I go to the supermarket and I see somebody jump, park, run in and run out, I'm thinking, yeah, see, that's what I don't like. Don't game the system. Let's actually let the system work for people, but we really don't do that in this country, right? Everybody games something.
There's a lot of gaming that's going on these days, which is unfortunate in that.
Yeah, but a lot of these things, they're also controlled. They do here. If you're caught in a parking space, even if you've got a badge but you can't identify it as being yours, you'll get a standard fine.
I think they do that here, but I don't think the police care. And I think they pull full stop. They don't. The neurodiversity.
If the police don't care, the other shoppers do, don't they? That's the thing, because people come in and complain and say
this is that must be nice, because in America, no, they don't do squat. People are just like, they're so. Here's why people don't complain in America. Because, and now you know how I know that? Because when I almost hit them in the parking lot, they don't even know I'm almost hitting them. Like, they're that stupid. You beep your horn, and they almost drop their phone. They look at you like,
I'm glad you said that you were. I'm glad you inferred that you were driving, Stephen, and you weren't walking around with a baseball bat trying to take people out, because that's
driving a baseball bat. It's the same thing. So, but no, and for neurodiversity, forget work for a second. School, like, I learned better. I like to read, and I'll pick things up. But like, they would show a movie, and I would, like, on history, which they don't teach, or civics they don't teach anymore. But when we went to school, and I would watch the movie, and even these little nuances about things I would catch, and then I would read the book and I'd catch these things. And the teacher always had these like things that nobody would ever pay any extra credit. So every test I would get like 120 or 130, instead of 100, because I like it. But today it's with kids, it's sort of like, this is how we learn for 100. Not everybody learns sitting at a desk.
That's changing very quickly.
Yep. Yeah. So that needs to change as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you see a lot.
I think
If you actually, I mean, they're always say, "Oh, you look at this guy; he's super successful. He's super
right,
successful. Crapped out of school when he was 15.
right,
Couldn't do
Right.
anything. Couldn't get into college. Couldn't tie his shoes. Whatever. Yeah, all of those people. But they are the ones who are going to make it anyway, regardless of what you put in front of them.
Mhm.
But
right.
there's a huge group of people who are held back by the system, and in many respects held back by their parents who want to look after them that little bit of extra, which just
Right.
adds to their feeling of inadequacy
I
going
see.
forward in life.
I think it's worth saying though, with understanding all of this neurodiversity, is that actually it can be, and I think people are picking up on this too. They mentioned this in the article, is that it could be a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a good
It
point.
is. It is a
It is
competitive advantage.
because you are getting a diversity of viewpoints and in the way that they actually think, which means that I think in general, that diversity of thought and that diversity of viewpoints can actually make it better for you at work for coming up with solutions and solving issues in the marketplace and just responding to your customers.
Thinking out.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bendicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bendicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club. All right. So that's our cue for the next topic, which thanks for that on neurodiversity. Now let's get into, so what the article that David found was a firm that is still using human models, but
Right.
is supplementing that with artificial intelligence driven models for showing off the flows.
Yeah, and they're testing it out with Levi's, and Levi's got a lot of blowback from that. Because he has a lot of unemployed models out there. I mean, look at me.
I know, it's terrible.
Yeah, terrible. Yeah, there's somebody going to be doing a fatty range somewhere along. But yeah, so it was interesting because it's a bit like or let's say an example, the Toy Story movies, where all of a sudden the only interesting thing about the actor was their voice.
Right.
So you didn't have to worry about them being on set, etc. And so it's the same with this virtual clothing. In many respects, if you look at it, if you had a company, who wanted to be, very, very quick in changing from one thing to another, offering virtual models to demonstrate your clothing, it's not a bad idea. But
well, you're actually doing it in many more use cases, because what about the people who can't afford, who just don't and can't afford to actually hire live models? There's still a marketplace for that. And even beyond that, for the people who can afford it, what if you're doing it what if you want to reshoot, retake, or redo a shoot? You're not going to bring everybody all back together. Maybe you can do some AI manipulation to fix the shot or fix the scene.
Yeah,
I think AI is going to basically have hotter, sexier models than in real world, because it's going to go into the psyche of the planet, and it's going to say what's hot and sexy, and that's going to be the model. So all these models that walk the catwalk, I think you'll have them, because you got to have cats walking the walk.
It's going to homogenize the visual landscape.
Yeah, I think it basically, listen, at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants. You can tell, because nobody wants to do. It's like, let's do something that puts more people out of work. There was Goldman Sachs put out a report last week, it was in the FT. I think I sent it to you guys, and it said in the next 10 to 20 years, 300 million people are going to be out of work because of AI. Okay, well, there's some models that are going to be out of work, which is good for sugar daddies, bad for the rest of the planet. So all you sugar daddies out there, start looking at models. But at the end of the day, 300 million people out of 8 billion. And I think it's going to be more, because as AI can do more and more and more and more and more, it's going to be like, what do you need a human for? And so, it's getting to that point. It's just another thing.
Are you spreading fear now, Stephen, that this is happening?
Oh
Because
no, I listen. It's already happening. It happened with
Stevenson's
robotics in Detroit.
it was probably the same, when people started, when the first industrial revolution happened, everybody
Yeah.
was saying, oh, nobody will ever go back onto a farm again. Everybody will live in the city. Everything will be mechanized, etc., etc. There's going to be some sort of balance
work.
in between. Or do you think
Right,
that
no,
it's really
I
this
agree.
one's going to be, to like really take off and scream up?
I think AI itself is going to do it. I think in the modeling industry, if I'm Louis Vuitton and I need a photo shoot, I'm probably going to use a live person because I can afford it, right? I'm Louis Vuitton, or
Yeah.
I'm Gucci, or I'm Prado, whoever I may be. But if I'm like the Dave, Steve, Michael clothing company, and I like a local model, and I don't know, I'll make up a number, it's $500 for the day or for the hour, and we're like, wow, we can spend that $500 putting the ad out. What do we do? And someone says, hey, for X, you can use an AI model, and the AI model does everything a real person does. All of a sudden, the local model that does the clothing or does the car commercial, I can use AI. And right now, because it's such a novel idea, it's a novelty. It's like the pet rock. People are going to be like, oh, that's cool. Did you see the ad, right? And I want you to talk about my ad. It's the way to go. Will it really take over? I have no idea. But the report that Goldman puts out says 300 million people are going to be out of work for it. That I kind of believe, because even the Industrial Revolution, people know when robots started to make cars, you still need people, but you don't need as many. So if you look at all this, it cuts the workforce, and it's either you have to retrain them or everybody needs to just get universal income, I think. So
I knew that Michael wanted to talk about AI, but it's such a big subject that I tried to focus. When we did the pre-show thing, tried to focus it just on the virtual models. Because there is so much stuff to talk about. Yeah. But I think Michael also said something at the beginning of this as well. It's every market you'll have the ultimate model that will fit it. So the Asian markets are always looking for somebody who's slightly Asian, but almost but almost European, and the other way around. And of course, those physical models are very difficult to find and very expensive. And now if I have this widget and I want this other widget across the whole planet, I can have a virtual model, based on every market that I want to step into.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and even personalize that with the amount of data. We've talked about the data that is gathered on consumers already, and there are certainly talks that you could personalize using generative artificial intelligence, which generates new content on the fly. You could actually generate content specific to the person who's visiting your website or visiting your store, and deliver them something, or deliver them an avatar that's going to speak directly to them, which is hyper personalized and is another paradigm shift related to the modeling, because now you have models that you can just make directly relevant to and attractive to the person who's visiting your site.
And the best part is you don't have to pay them.
You don't have
to
pay them.
Mike, you know what Mike Eisner said? And for you guys that don't know who Mike Eisner was, he's the one who turned Disney around with Katzenberg back in when they took it over in the 90s, when it was going to go literally out and not be Disney. But Katzenberg said the best decision they ever made was when they did The Lion King, the cartoon, if you will, the movie, because he says cartoons don't get residuals.
Oh, wow.
He paid them what they paid them. That was it. There was no the air stuff, because when I was reading his book, he said that. I was like, wow. So he was ahead of the curve, because he's.
But it's going to be the same for the other same thing. All the Pixar stuff, the Toy Stories and all the rest.
I'm going to bet you that they all get residuals, because now they're all a little smarter than they were when the cartoon came out. Now, remember, when Lion King came out, everyone was like, whatever. It grossed $1 billion. Wow. And at that point, a lot of those actors, I'm sure, are like, oh, we probably should have taken some money here. So I think like Pixar, and which is now Disney anyway, and all these other.
Yeah.
I think now if you do a voiceover, you're kind of like, the people that do The Simpsons, they get like $5 or $10 million every year in residuals. I think everyone gets a residual now. I think that's the contract that's been negotiated. But in the 90s, when it was new, when you had real celebrities doing a cartoon, which you really didn't have before, I guess, Lion King, you had them doing it, but not like that. And it made $1 billion, and they're all like, well, damn, we should have made more money. I think they all get something now, but that was his thing. He's like, I don't have to pay a cartoon residuals. And I was like, wow, or profit share, or this, or that. A voice actor, no matter who it was, like James Earl, that's not their thing. It was this. I'm assuming, like I said, now they do. So Disney, or if you will, Michael Eisner was ahead of the curve way back in the 90s. So
this is AI is a new version of that. You don't have to pay the models. And when generative AI works and creates a new voice actor, you won't have to pay that voice actor either.
Correct. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think Goldman's report, 300 million. I bet it's going to be more. We'll be out of work. No, I'm not trying to put fear on the planet.
No.
But you have to think through it. But that's what I'm saying. When they brought robots to Detroit, and you had 10,000 people working in a factory that went from 1,000, people are out of work. If a modeling industry, and I don't know how many models there are. I'll say 1 million models, and I can use AI on a lot of levels. Let's say there's now only going to be 100,000 models. Now these girls are going to have to find another form of work, or whatever it might be. All these modeling schools now, you're going to teach them modeling and computers? I mean, like it's a whole different paradigm that we're going into.
It's interesting to think, though, that if you start reducing the workforce like that, it'll only be the most exceptional models or the most exceptional voice actors or the most exceptional people.
It's interesting, Michael, about the voice actors, what you said as well, because if you go back to what Stephen said about Disney, Disney will probably be thinking, these are all the sort of voices that I need to make another $1 billion cartoon. We'll just feed that in. And then, after 2 or 3 years, the Tim Allen and, Tom Hanks, sorry, guys, don't need you anymore because we've got another voice we can do the stuff with. And by the way, it's our own voice.
I mean, if you start making, if you have so much creativity in, let's just say, the voice acting world, and you have, you come up with novel voices all the time, you're right. Even in that case, it might be unlikely or less likely that you'll need human voice actors at all. But the point I was making is that if you actually have everybody who's only exceptional getting the jobs, how do the people who are not that exceptional get the jobs to train and get better at it so that they can one day be the exceptional ones?
They don't. That's where
we're not getting any sort of training at the lower level.
Right. But that's where you're going. They're not going to get that. You're not going to have an average model, and since we're talking about modeling, right? Unless it's in a big local market, maybe, that doesn't use AI, that's not going to hit the world stage because no one's going to know about her anymore. Right? It's like, it's going to be like, okay, if I'm not the top 1 of 1% that walks in Milan and walks in here and walks in there, or doesn't get a catalog spread, like in whatever Rob report or whatever you want to read, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm just a pretty girl or I'm a pretty guy. Now what? It's like I think there's going to be a lot more that's coming. And I think AI, and not being a fear monger, but I think AI is going to change a lot of things by the end of this decade, where people are going to be like, wow, like David and I will joke with people, like we do with you, like, hey, do you remember this? And be like, oh yeah, you guys are old, right? People your age are going to say to people that are 10 years younger, hey, you don't remember this, but it's going to be the same thing because I think AI is going to change things that quickly. And it's already starting to change that quickly. So I think people are going to be in a rude awakening.
I think that's a good moment to bring up that the Musk letter, the 1,300 people along with Elon Musk who signed a letter saying that the main premise of the letter was not the idea that they should immediately pause any AI beyond the intelligence of GPT-4, which is the subtitle of it. But I think what I took out of it, the main statements that they were really trying to make is that AI labs and AI creators need to give space to regulators, governments, and society to really think this through before we just go off the cliff and just let this all happen on its own.
Not happening. That's a dream. That's a pipe dream. That's not happening because let me explain. greed is good. The Gordon Geckos of the 80s, and now greed is good. And there was an article yesterday in the FT, I think I posted it on my LinkedIn, and it talked about AI in horse racing and betting and how it works and yada, yada, yada. Are you kidding? Nobody can care less what the government, nobody cares what the government has to say. They don't care about the morals of it. If someone's going to come up with an AI that can, pick football bets, they're gonna use it. If they can pick an AI that's going to predict stuff, they're going to use it. If they're going to be AI that makes them more competitive, they're going to use it.
You're saying there should be no effort for regulation.
Oh no. I think there should be, but you've already let the horse or the cow out of the barn. Right. You're screwed. There's nothing, and here's why. Because I can work at a university, and the government's go, you can't do this, you can do that. And you're like, yeah, whatever, pal. And you're going to still do it, and you're going to keep it quiet, and you're going to do it then for your own self-preservation and your own profit. I think the problem is that you're going to have to, unfortunately, it's going to be the rise of the robots, then it'll be too late. But it already is too late because we've gotten so far ahead that they don't know what to do. So when Elon Musk and the rest of these guys go, we shouldn't do it, I'm sure they're doing it. They just want nobody else to be able to do it. So that's where I also have a problem. And I don't really know if the government's the one I want really giving me moral turpitudes on my AI. That's like I don't want the church talking about my AI. I think you're going to have to let AI see the world for what it is and let maybe AI decide where its value lays. Because it's supposed to. If you like the Lost Dollar Business Club, you should subscribe. If you like it that much, you should also tell a friend of yours. So you should subscribe and like. Also, you should put comments below so we know what you're thinking. Tell us what shows you want to hear. Just help us make it better.
All right, we're at Lost and Found. We're at Lost and Found already.
So who's lost $1 this week? And who's found $1 this week?
Yeah, we're gonna have to work on that. We're gonna have to work on.
Just keep playing it, David.
Yeah, you just keep playing it, David. We can sit here for the next 20 minutes. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I'll start us off. I mean, so since we're still talking about AI, the Microsoft's Bing, uses ChatGPT built into it, and what Microsoft announced is that they've already announced this. They have certainly plans for it, and they're testing this out, which is to put advertising inside the chat. Now, I haven't seen how they're doing it. I haven't seen examples of how they're going to do that, but they're creating ads as part of the AI experience, which I think AI will be so attractive to people, they'll still do it despite the ads, and they'll just have a way, just like you kind of ignore them now, you'll ignore them in the chat experience. But that could be a very big win for Microsoft, or it could just say, I'm not going to do the ad-driven experience and just let it go altogether. But I think that's unlikely.
Or you just pay the $19 a month and get ad-free.
And get it for ad-free, right?
Which is kind of what they're hoping for, I think.
So is it, what are we going, Michael? Is that a lost dollar or a found dollar?
I think that's going to be a found dollar.
Yep, I agree. Ooh, David just has sound effects. That's why he just wants the good, bad, or indifferent.
This is a big elevation for the show.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. We have low expectations here. Go ahead. Which is our motto, by the way. Go ahead. Yes, David.
Yeah. You have a lost and found this week, or have you been sleeping?
I don't know. I was wide awake for the last 15 minutes. Pay transparency. I think pay transparency. I don't know if it's a lost and or a found, but there was an article in the FT. Of course, we know I like the FT and the Economist, that was talking about someone who actually saw a job posting on LinkedIn, because in some states and countries you have to post the job range, and they've been there 5 years, and a new hire was going to make more than they were going to make. So they actually started to look for another job because their HR department's like, well, we can't do whatever, which to me sounds stupid. So I think to one extent, it's a found dollar for employees now, because you can't bring a new person in that does the same job and pay them $50,000 more a year. I think it's going to be a loss. I can't wait to hear the sound effect. Thank you. For businesses, because you're going to lose good people if you don't change your policies.
You mean change the pay policies or change the
Change
policy
the
of transparency?
Right. So if you're my employee, Michael, right? You work for me and we pay you $10, but I'm going to hire a guy that's going to do exactly what you're going to do. You've been here 5 years and I'm going to pay them $12.50 now. And David comes in and you don't know that. If there's no transparency, you're going to be like, oh, we got a new guy, whatever. But if you know that and you're doing the job exceptionally well, we're just bringing someone else in because there's more work. Why wouldn't I give you the raise, the $12.50, and then bring David in either at $12.50 or at $10? It makes no sense. So I think the loss for companies is going to be they're going to have to change the way they do that. This one person said in the article, they went to their HR department and their managers and they're like, there's nothing we can do. And he's like, she was like, I've been here and my work is exceptional. I get my merit. You can't give me a raise that a new person's going to get. And I'm like, that to me is the dumbest thing in the world.
Not intelligent, no.
Yeah. So the pay, yes, thank you. The pay transparency, I think it's a 50-50. I think it's going to be a win and a loss depending on how it's used going forward.
It's a good find.
Okay. Yeah.
David? Mr. Sound Effects.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you decide, guys, before we go into the sound effects, because I found you may well have seen it, because but there's an Australian cultured. I seem to be stuck on virtual food. I think an Australian cultured meat company called Vow. Yeah. And what they did is that it's a one-off. It's just really as a proof of concept. But they've actually, and it was presented this week in Amsterdam. They made a meatball made out of mammoth meat.
Oh,
mammoth.
Like woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
Extinct creature.
Woolly mammoth. They used a mammoth and an elephant DNA. And some sheep stem cells to produce a mammoth protein.
Wow.
And so this is the question, is it not, gentlemen? I mean, if we I'm trying to start this Kentucky Fried Dodo business. It's getting nearer to it every week now, it would seem. So mammoth meatball. There's photographs of it on Reuters. You can find it. So
we're going to get more exotic meats from extinct creatures. That's a win to me.
Really?
Yeah.
It's not real though. It's make believe. It's a chemical. It's made in a lab. If I'm going to eat something, it better be. I need it to have been alive. A man.
Well, it was alive. It was alive.
Yeah, sure. A couple 100,000 years ago, I want to eat something that's been alive like the last, I don't know, couple of weeks.
Okay.
I mean,
So moving forward, then, if you could, is this a lost dollar then, Stephen, for you, or a found dollar?
I'm on the fence. I'd have to know more about it and the nutritional value and what it's going to do to your body. Yeah, I maybe. It just sounds, if you're making stuff in a lab, how healthy can it be?
That's up in the air. Maybe that'll be a good topic for the next show. How healthy lab grown food?
Yeah. We need to get a lab grown scientist on it because But I'm just saying, you're making me first of all, you're making me a mammoth burger. Number one, I don't know. That just sounds too weird. I mean, I would try a piece of it to see what it tastes like, but it's made from elephant and chicken sperm and whatever else you threw in there.
It's mammoth and elephant DNA with some sheep stem cells.
It's got a little sheep.
They've taken the genetic code of the mammoth and filled the gaps in with an African elephant DNA, and they've fed it into some sheep stem cells, and they've produced a protein, and from this protein they've produced this meat.
Great.
Sounds like Jurassic Park.
Michael? This is Jurassic Park.
Is this a loss or a found for you?
Oh, I think it's going to be a found. People are going to love it, just like they love the Beyond Burger, which I'm not a fan of, but people love it. They have a market. There's a market.
Yeah. There's a market for everything. People are crazy.
That's crazy.
Well, this has been a fun show today, guys. So, I like it. Now, just so everybody knows, Michael shows every day, not every day, Saturdays at 6 a.m. Eastern time. is when it goes live, or it could be 7 a.m. Eastern time and 6 a.m. Central time. But anyway, every Saturday, Michael's show goes live. If you like, subscribe, tell your friends. And next week, God knows what crazy topics we're going to have. Also, if you want, you can put comments
Let
below
us know.
and tell us what you want to talk about, and we will be more than happy to do that. And if you want to be a guest on the show, let us know. Tell us what you want to talk
Especially
about.
if you're
Like
a lab-grown scientist.
I was just saying, if you're a food scientist, we want you on the show because we need to talk about mammoth DNA with whale sperm and the food you're developing and why you're developing it.
They're just in your dreams, Stephen. Just in your dreams.
Oh, that's why I'm having that penis reduction done at the end of the month. Anyway, so there you go. What else, guys? That's it. We're done.
Looks like
Subscribe and like, everybody.
All right. That's all. Now remember to subscribe.
Gotta subscribe.
Gotta subscribe.
Tell your friends.
Spread the word.
Tell your golf buddies. Wake up the girl next to you. Don't tell your wife. So.